Good evening, friends. Welcome to the India Power Talk. India Power Talk is a knowledge sharing initiative. We invite international thought leaders and domain experts to share their insights, experiences, and strategies related to business and the economy. As the pandemic has made painfully clear, we need to think beyond national boundaries. World bodies like the United Nations, World Health Organizations, World Bank, NATO, and WTO were created in response to the horrors and hardships of World War II. There was a shared sense of urgency, the need to rebuild and make our world a safer place. As we emerge from the pandemic crisis, we have a similar opportunity. These are some of the ideas put forward in the recent book, Redesign the World, a global call to action. It is my great honor, privilege, and personal pleasure to welcome its author, Sam Pitroda, as my guest today. Sir, good morning and welcome to you.
Thank you, Nitin.
It's so good to see you, sir, and thanks for agreeing to discuss your book, Redesign the World, with me on India Power Talk. Sir, may I please request you to begin by talking about what gave you the idea to write your latest book?
First of all, once again, thank you, Nitin. I really want to compliment you for the series of conversations you are having with global leaders. I think it is very important for people to get different viewpoints from experts in various fields with varied background. It really enriches our understanding of the world. It makes us more open, receptive to new ideas. And I really want to compliment you for doing this, especially at the time of pandemic and thereafter.
Thank you, sir.
And when I look at this journey of mine for the last 8 decades, I realize that the world has changed completely. I also realized that world was last designed just about the time I was born. That design was led by a handful of people in the US and few European countries. And that design gave birth to United Nations, World Bank, IMF, NATO, WTO, WHO, GDP, GNP, per capita income, all of these things that we all blindly follow. And I think that design has done pretty well. In general, longevity has increased, infant mortality has decreased, technology has benefited large number of people, and we have lifted large number of people out of poverty. But that design hasn't solved some of the great problems in this world. That design has created environmental blunders. Global warming is a net result of that design. That design hasn't completely eliminated poverty, hunger, and violence. We need a new design because for the first time in the human history, all 8 billion people are connected. We are all connected in a very special way with hyperconnectivity. What does this connectivity mean to the world? Unfortunately, today we use this connectivity to do the same thing we have been doing in the past. Little better, little cheaper, little faster. Can we use this connectivity in a very special way to take humanity to the next level? Is the question I asked. Because to me, this connectivity brings about democratization of knowledge, decentralization of implementation, and demonetization of services. So when I look at the design, I realized that it was fundamentally based on 5 ideas: democracy, human rights, capitalism, consumption, and military. But in the last 80 years, world got decolonized. Movement led by Mahatma Gandhi not only made India independent from British Raj, but the whole world got decolonized in a short span of 25 years. What does this decolonization of the world mean to the old design? Then China could rise up to a level no one ever thought of. Then Soviet Union fell apart. Technology became pervasive. At the same time, we have created a lot of inequality in the world. Very few people are very rich and lots of people are very poor. Then 9/11 changed American mindset. And finally, COVID-19 put entire world to halt. And to me, COVID-19 basically says that we are all interconnected, interwoven, interdependent, and interrelated. We are all human beings at the end of the day, no matter what color we are, what religion we follow, what race we belong to, what language we speak, or what nationality we have. So COVID-19 tells me specifically that there are only two important things in this world. One, our planet. And two, our people. Our planet is in pain because we have cut our forest, eliminated a lot of our species. In the name of development, we have messed up our environment. I think we need to take care of planet first. Planet doesn't need us. We need planet. Planet has many other forms of life. Planet will survive without human beings, but human beings can't survive without planet. Second thing is our people are in pain. Because on one hand, you have people with hundreds of billions of dollars. On the other hand, there are people who can't have enough to eat. They have to sleep on floor outside. They are hungry. They are sick. Why? Why is all this? So Corona crisis tells me that we must really redesign the world. This is a good time to rethink, reevaluate, repurpose, reposition. And as a result, I go back to the original design that was done 80 years ago. And I'm asking questions. Is UN doing the job they are supposed to do? Is World Bank relevant? Do we need new institutions? What are the important things beside what we started with? And that led me to write this book.
Could you elaborate on your concept of redesigning the world?
As I said earlier, the 5 pillars of the design were democracy, human rights, capitalism, consumption, and military. Let's examine each one of those carefully. When Soviet Union fell apart, we felt that democracy has won. Now, we are realizing that democracy is in danger in many countries. We need to strengthen our democracy everywhere. We have to build inclusive world. So the first part of the design is to take democracy to inclusion.
I see.
Human rights are not good enough. Today, we can produce anything. We need to decide what is that we want to produce. And for whom do we want to produce? We always wind up producing for people who can afford to buy and not for people who need it. So we must focus on moving from human rights to human needs. Capitalism has done well, but it has done extremely well for a handful of people and not well for a lot of people at the bottom of the economic pyramid. So what we need to do is design new economy, circular economy, regenerative economy, where we begin things from bottom up and not top down. Then this idea of consumption, go on buying madly because you can afford to buy, has created huge problem in the world. We need to learn to conserve and not just consume. I hope that as a civilization, we have matured to a point we can sort out our differences by negotiating across the table and not immediately go to nuclear weapons. Doesn't make sense anymore.
Absolutely.
We are matured people now. We are a mature civilization. So we must stop building military hardware at the pace we have been building. Slowly and slowly move that to development. And I think we must now focus on non-violence. So when I look at the design, I find that these are the 5 new things to be done. But unfortunately, today there are 2 designs in the world that everyone is focused on. One is the American leadership as the world leader, champion of technology, richest country in the world. And America is the known superpower, accepted superpower. But now we have another rising superpower called China. And China wants to take the lead in designing the world. And Chinese design is based on Belt and Road Initiative. They want to go into every country and offer huge amount of loans to build their infrastructure, whether it is railways, ports, housing, whatever, power plants. But both of these designs, according to me, are based on command and control. And I'm saying world today needs a third design. The design that is based more on collaboration, cooperation, co-creation. But it's not easy because nobody wants to give away control. People want to dominate because we still have this colonial mindset.
Yes.
Everybody wants to dominate. Today, when you see the conversation at G7 or G20, and I watch this very carefully, and I find that most of the leaders are focused on geopolitical equations, economy, trade, markets, and that's about it. They have very little interest in human development, education, health, poverty, violence. Nobody talks about that. Unfortunately, we don't have the leaders like Mahatma Gandhi and Mandela and Martin Luther Kings. So we need a new conversation. We need new global conversation.
So fair point. Absolutely fair point. You say that world needs to be redesigned, and you have very aptly given the 5 elements of the redesign. May I ask you, sir, who would do this? A, and what would be the starting point? Would it be economy, education, environment, or something more?
No, I believe the starting point is to have a new conversation. But that conversation cannot be one way from me to you. It has to be conversation between all the lawyers, all the teachers, all the politicians, between politicians and teachers and lawyers, doctors, businessmen. They all should feel that it is time to redesign the world. So first thing is to really begin new global conversation. Second requirement is to have change agents. If you don't have change agents, there will not be change. And first change has to come from within. If I change, world will change. And then we need leadership at G7 or G20 to say, hey, we need to have a conversation on redesign. So it has to come from the bottom and also from the top down. And it's a very complex process. But the more interesting point that you raised, do we do it in economy, education? No, we have to do it in these 5 areas. If you take one little vertical, doesn't happen.
And I guess parallelly we need to start.
You have to do in 5 key areas. It doesn't include education. It doesn't include health. It includes inclusion. In there comes health, education, everything in inclusion. Then human needs. Then new economy. Then conservation and sustainability. And then non-violence. You cannot take one
Yes.
and do it. You got to do all 5, because when the design was set up, all 5 had to move on. Capitalism, human rights, democracy, consumption, because consumption was required to boost the economy then.
Absolutely.
So you cannot take one little item and hope to redesign the world. It doesn't work that way.
Sir, as interconnected as the world is, it also seems to be more fragmented or divided due to the spread of internet and the emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, data analytics, and the IoT. Now, on one hand, whilst we really enjoy and we feel proud of these technologies, how do you see emerging economies, in particular India, adopting or catching up with these technologies?
You see, unfortunately, technologies are seen more as a glamour. Every time I talk to somebody, immediately there'll be a conversation on Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, AI, robotics, IoT. To me, these are all little tools. How are we using these tools? It's like a knife. You can kill somebody and you can cut tomato. So today, internet has democratized education, knowledge, but social media has really created havoc. So I think a lot of thinking has to go in now to clean up some of this mess we have created.
So let me bring you to India now. Let's talk about India. You were the architect of telecom revolution in India. So what would you first redesign in India if given an opportunity today? But before that, very quickly, if you could tell the today's generation what you did for the telecom sector in India.
Okay, first of all, I think it's important for young people to understand that I was born and raised in a small little tribal village in Orissa. My father had 4th grade education. India gave me opportunity to get a master's in physics for less than $10 because the education was almost free. So India empowered me. I came to America in 64, been here for 56 years, 57 years. And I got an opportunity to work in Rajiv Gandhi's time when we had 2 million telephones in India for 650 million people. Today, we are a nation of a connected billion. We have 1.2 billion phones. In addition, we generate $200 billion worth of software service export every year, year after year. Because during Mrs. Indira Gandhi's time, I was given an opportunity to make a presentation to her in which I said, IT and telecom will change the face of India. This was 1980. Prime Minister believed in this idea, backed me up. We set up a Center for Development of Telematics to focus on training large number of young Indians, engineers, scientists coming out of IITs and other good universities. And when Mrs. Gandhi died, Rajiv Gandhi became Prime Minister, and he really gave meaning to my life. I realized that rather than being just an engineer, here is an opportunity to help build a nation. So we worked on IT, telecom, software, computers, technology missions for literacy, immunization, cooking oil, drinking water, milk production. All the right things we did then, including starting in Pune, CDAC, Center for Development of
Yeah.
Advanced Computing for supercomputers. So we did lots of interesting things then and planted seeds. And today we are benefiting from those seeds we planted. You must remember that polio got eradicated in India only because there was a mission on immunization in Rajiv Gandhi's time. In the 80s, we did not make any vaccine. Today, we are the largest producer of vaccines in the world. Today, we are the largest producer of milk in the world. Today, we are known as the champions of IT in the world.
Yes.
It didn't happen overnight. It took 3-4 decades. But somebody had to have the vision and somebody had to plant the seeds. So you needed political will that came from the Prime Minister, domain expertise that came from people like me, and a lot of young Indian talent. Indian entrepreneurs, Indian policymakers, and young engineers from IIT and other institutions. They made it happen. So credit goes to a large number of people. But the nation building is not like building a company. Company building is very simple. Nation building is a very complex process. And it requires people who want to sacrifice, give. If you look at our independence movement, everyone who was engaged in that never asked what is in it for me.
So my first part of the question was, what would you first redesign in India if today given an opportunity?
If I have to redesign India today, I would first and foremost focus on strengthening our democracy. I would decentralize everything. To strengthen democracy, you need independent institutions. You need scientific mindset. And you also need civil society.
Sir, I'm sure you're not just aware, but also must be seriously concerned with the current brain drain in India. Today, not hundreds, but thousands of young students are going abroad for education. I mean, during the 60s, only doctors and engineers were going abroad for further education. Today, any good 12th standard student wants to go abroad for studies, and not just studies, but he wants to settle down in Europe or in America or Canada. Now, how can they be encouraged to come back, or what would your advice be to them?
See, first of all, India has a lot of talent. India is the workforce for the world. You go to any big company in America, any big university, any big bank, you will find people of Indian origin all over in great positions, in executive positions. So it is good that Indian talent has become global. But India also needs talent.
Yes.
Why are these people leaving India? Only because, one, education is not up to the mark. So we got to improve education. Two, the environment in India, to some of them, is suffocating. You can't get proper justice. So I think a lot of young feel frustrated. And they leave. You can't blame them. You have to ask them, saying, why are you leaving? And I don't know the real answer, but I'm sure they will say that, we find the quality of education is no good. We find limited opportunities, and we find we won't get justice. Simple.
What about the situation of Indian women? Now, what needs to be redesigned to truly empower the woman power of India?
First of all, each one of us will have to respect women. They are very important to the growth of India. They are equally important citizens in the society. They must be given equal opportunity. They are talented. And we can't treat them the way we have been treating them. You cannot build a nation like that. Diversity has to be at the core. And women are part of diversity. Women are part of inclusion.
I recollect your conversation with me in Chicago, and you said Gandhiji is more relevant today than he was pre-independence. Could you please elaborate on that once again?
See, first of all, Gandhiji means different things to different people. To me, Gandhiji is not just a person. Gandhiji is an idea. Gandhiji is a philosophy. Gandhiji is a way of life. So when I say Gandhi, I begin with some fundamental issues in life. First, truth and absolute truth. Two, trust. I trust you. So truth, trust. Third is love. I got to love you for what you are. I got to respect that you are different. I got to listen to you. I got to pay attention to you. And I cannot discriminate you. So on one hand, you have truth, trust, love. On the other hand, inclusion, diversity, dignity, respect. On the third hand, democracy, decentralization, human rights, justice. All of these things, to me, make Gandhian thought. So I think world today needs Gandhi also from the viewpoint of non-violence. World has become too violent.
Yes.
Okay. So Gandhi was really all about simplicity. So Gandhi is more relevant again from the viewpoint of redesigning the world. If we had really built the first design with inclusion, with non-violence, world would be very different today.
Now, when I look at your book, Redesign the World, and having heard you elaborately on several aspects of redesigning the world, what would be the one call of action that you wish people, which will be easier for people to begin redesigning the world?
You redesign yourself. You redesign yourself. That will be a great starting point because you have control over it. You may not have control over other things. But can you say, I will be inclusive? I will worry about human needs. I will conserve. I will worry about environment and sustainability. I would promote economy that is from bottom up. And I'll be non-violent. We need Gandhian leaders. Mandela was Gandhian leader. Martin Luther King was Gandhian leader because they believed in sacrifice. They didn't believe in self. Today's leader believe in self. We need new conversation.
Sir, do you feel disappointed?
No, I'm not disappointed. I'm not disappointed. Look, at the end of the day, world has come a long way. The fact that I'm alive at 80, how could I be disappointed? I had two portable bypasses.
What's the one hope that you see when you talk of redesigning the world?
I see a lot of hopes. I see, one, the power of technology to really improve productivity, efficiency in food and other things. I see energy of the young. I see hope to think differently. Okay. I see the power of communication to connect people from all over the world in a very different way that was never possible before. So I do see a lot of hope.
So one thing which I see in today's generation, the young generation particularly, I don't belong to that generation, but still I my son is 28, 20, 30 years old. So when I see this young generation, the one thing which I see in them is they don't have any baggages. they are open to any discourse. They are open to new ideas, which was not the case in 60s and 70s. People were biased. People had a lot of prejudices. People had a lot of baggages.
Because people were insecure.
People are insecure. That's
See,
not the case.
this young generation is fairly secure.
Absolutely.
That's one very positive thing.
Absolutely.
Because also I must tell you that we were the children of the poor.
Yes.
We are children of the well-to-do people. There's a big difference. Okay, we had to survive.
Absolutely.
They are comfortable.
They are comfortable.
Okay, some
therefore
of them, not all of them.
Therefore, they can take chances in life.
Exactly. So I have great hope in these people.
Thank you so much, sir. I know for your valuable time and really great insights into the book that you wrote. It has been a great pleasure talking to you, sir, as usual. I would like to thank the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce as well as the Indian Chamber of Commerce, Law Sikho, and the India SME Accelerator Network. Let me conclude with a humble prayer to the Almighty to bestow mankind the right spirit to fight the coronavirus and help restore peace, prosperity, and well-being. So it has been a great pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Nitin. Thank you for the opportunity and wish you all the best. And let's remain in touch.
Yes, absolutely, sir. Thank you.